8 to 10 a.m. and you're listening to
Right, let's talk about an issue that we picked up yesterday that we need to follow up on, right? And that concerns the what is called the Waterloo Road Masjid, which is in the suburb of Kenwyn, in Cape Town, right? So with me is Jakes Rawat, who's a trustee at what is called the Ashrafia Trust, that effectively, my understanding is runs or governs that particular mosque, Waterloo Road Masjid. Jakes, appreciate your time. Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. I just want to check your sound. Maybe you can just raise your level slightly higher than the volume, slightly higher than what it is right now, so we can hear you clearly. Yeah,
Does that help?
slightly. Yeah, I think that's I think that's okay. Yeah. All right. Let's get moving. Let me tell you what I know. Right. So, yesterday we chatted to Hassan Tabada, who's he's been a newspaper editor, so very much in the communication space, and works even now at the University of Western Cape. Who spoke to us as being one of the protesters, right, who went out at Kenwyn with placards, and there were many, I don't know how many, and they had asked him that if there's media publicity around this, that he should be the appointed speaker, which I can understand because he's in the communication space. So that's the first thing we know. The second thing we know is that there were protests that definitely took place. There were enough visuals to confirm that there were protests against the trust or the trustees and in support of the imam in question, that we need to talk about, right? The third aspect is in the conversation with Hassan Tabada. He made the point that the imam himself was fired, and I say that in inverted commas, after 19 years of service, of sterling service, according to Hassan, right? And he was, and the community, by and large, are very in support of him being reinstated, and therefore the protests. He also confirmed that the imam was fired after he gave a talk, a khutbah, which is probably during the Jummah, I would think, and he spoke about it as December. I think further reports suggest it could have even been the year before, but we can confirm that part. And in response to that, that's when he was fired. Now, beyond that, Hassan Tabada is very much the observer. He's not the expert. He's certainly not somebody inside. We said, and I even told Hassan this yesterday, that we have to get the side of the trust, because we need to know what the trustees say and get their view. And if needs be, we will get the imam himself. In fact, we spoke to the imam in question, and he said, well, on the back of this particular conversation, he may well offer his own right to reply. Bottom line to this is obviously the clarity, and this is where we sit in at Salam Media, the clarity of what actually has happened, because it is rather disturbing when an imam is no more there, but also more disturbing, people come and leave all the time, right? People get jobs and they go. The more disturbing thing is when there's a public protest that takes place outside the mosque or in the area of Kenwyn where the mosque resides. So let's find out more about it. So as part of that right of reply, on the one hand, and certainly to get their side of the story, it's important to speak to the trustees, and therefore Jakes Rawat, a trustee at the Ashrafia Trust, is with us. So Jakes, thanks for that. You've heard my initial thoughts. So let me start by this, right? That's all I know. We don't know much more than that. So what actually has happened here?
Okay, the imam was called to a disciplinary hearing for
Right.
his actions, and at the disciplinary hearing, the evidence was laid before him, and based on the misconduct, he was dismissed. And of course, he has a right to go and seek assistance from the CCMA and get his job back. So he hasn't. His rights are still there. He can go and exercise them. We live in a constitutional democracy, so he has all the right to go and get his, give his side of the story to the CCMA. But he had the opportunity at the disciplinary hearing to clarify what he was doing, and it wasn't one particular incident. There were multiple charges leveled against him. So I think it's a cut and dried case. It wasn't one particular occasion, like Hassan intimated to, but there were many. And in all this debacle, we were there as trustees, and the imam, as the employee, didn't see it fit to talk to the trustees, but he instead went to the community and said all these things, and we took him up on it. And so it's a simple matter of he misconducted himself, and he was found, for us, we believe he should be dismissed.
Okay, so of course the imam in question is Moulana Farouk Rylands, right? So let's get this right. I mean, normally, and I made the point earlier, people work, people move on for whatever reasons. It's really none of our business, right? It does become our business when there's a public protest. I mean, that just changes things by its very nature, right? So are you able to tell us what were the reasons for that misconduct that you refer to? And you say there were numerous, maybe highlight one or two key issues there.
Okay, the Ashrafia Trust was got hold of the community. We sat down with them. We came up with some proposals on how to move forward, give the community more input, establish a manco, and start working with the trust. And the trust duty as the overseers of the mosque, wanted to get more community involvement. And during this process, while we're working with the manco, who were responsible to run the day-to-day operations, we had the imam getting involved in the administrative duties and our negotiations with the manco, which was totally out of place, because as an employee, he has a role to play. But he started to rile up the community against the trust. And we warned him about that. And finally, we took action and called him up on his.
So let me understand this. I mean, so you have a trust, and the trust understand there's a need to be more inclusive. So you broaden your reach, and therefore you want to create this manco, management committee. And you're saying that the imam then speaks to the manco, and you use the words riles up the community against the trust. What would be his motivation? What was the nature of him riling up the community?
He basically has the idea that he has a right to talk out and do whatever he wishes, and it must be run according to Sharia law. And, he can't even be dismissed because he hasn't broken any Sharia laws. Unfortunately, we live in a constitutional democracy, and he needs to follow the law. And he believes he's beyond the law. So, I don't know.
Okay. So was he? I mean, so let me get this. I mean, when you talk about was he dismissed for that misconduct of interfering in a process of, in fact, if I understand it, enlarging or broadening, in this case here, the footprint of the governance of the masjid?
No. He got involved in the relationship between the manco that was democratically elected by voting, and the management committee represented the community. So the management committee would go out and do the work, and during the negotiations, we've opened up the trust, which has never happened before, that we would appoint 2 trustees. And at that point, the Moulana starts getting involved, because he wants to have a say in why we didn't elect we didn't elect one of the nominated members to the trust.
To the trust, okay.
Yeah.
So
now that's not his role. And then it got more ugly and uglier until such stage that he was riling up the community. And the employment relationship that we're talking about, that is a personal relationship. I don't think I want to ventilate all the charges against the Moulana, because employment relationships are personal, and I think I'd like to keep it that way. But if it was unfair, if we were, if we were unfair, he must go and seek his justice at the CCMA or wherever he wants to go.
So would he seek it? Let's assume he's right, and I'm assuming he's right. Okay, then CCMA in terms of the corporate governance around South Africa on the one hand, but he also the fact that he invoked the Sharia, and there is that school of thought. Once an imam is appointed, that's it. He runs everything. Would, for example, his recourse be with the MJC, for example, as the governing body of most of, I would think, of the ulama in the Western Cape?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the Sharia law applies when it comes to employment relationships. even if they pronounced on the matter, unless it was a private arbitration. But other than that, we live in a secular state, and there's rules and regulations, and that's how he was called up. Because if you are employed, even if you're employed for 50 years, it doesn't give you an automatic right to stay in your position.
Okay, so you're saying, just to confirm, there could be a series of sub issues, but the and I want to get this correct because I need to understand it well. The number one reason why he was dismissed, right, is that he interfered in the processes of the Manco, and effectively insisting that the Manco then, or rather, people nominated from the Manco had to be on the trust no matter what, and that insistence is what so irked the trustees and said, we cannot allow an employee, an imam, but an employee of the trust to do just that. Is that the number one reason why he's not the imam any longer?
No. That's not the number one reason. That's where it all started, because the negotiations between the trust and the Manco, had a specific role, and we had to negotiate the way forward. And during this process, he continuously interjected and gave his comments, and until such time that we felt it was untenable, and that we decided to call him up, and we've spoken to him, and we've spoken to his lawyer, and said, and to the Manco, because we would govern the thing jointly with the Manco to as an employee. So
okay, so then to confirm,
he can't do this. He can't undermine his employers in the community. But if he has an issue, rather take it and discuss it privately. But he wanted to make a spectacle of it, and I think the demonstration also indicates that it was one big spectacle.
Okay, we'll come to the demo in a moment. So let me confirm, because I don't want to misquote you. So therefore, Jakes Rawat, the number one reason why the Imam, Moulana Farouk Rylands, is not the Imam any longer at the Waterloo Road Masjid in Kenwyn is what?
Well, he's basically, as an employee, he was getting involved in issues that don't relate to him, right? It was other issues undermining the trust.
Okay, that's the number one reason. Fine. I also understand he spoke at a Jummah platform, a Jummah khutbah, where he effectively spoke out against the trust. I was led to believe that that's the number one reason why he's not the imam. I'm not too sure what he said. What did he say at that khutbah that again so irked the trust?
No, he swore. And he said, Wallahi, I've never spoken about the trust, against the trust at the khutbah. And we took one video and showed him. And that was it. I mean, that was where blatantly he swore an oath by Allah that he never spoke against the trust in the Jummah. And on the mimbar, he did just that. So that was just evidence. It wasn't because of that.
And when did that happen? Just for a record, when did that happen?
In December 2022, I think.
Okay, so it's over a year and a half ago. Then it's not now, right? Or 2022, so it's 6 months. Well, 3 months ago. Yeah, I get my math.
2021. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, but I mean, it's important. What I'm saying, the years along. Is it 4 months ago in December that just passed,
look,
or is it the previous
been going on for months? This matter started in 2021.
Okay,
so.
Got that. Right now, yes, there's been discussion. You're saying he was called up to a disciplinary meeting, a hearing rather. And am I right what you said, that he did not testify?
He did. He only testified at that hearing in his defense, but he offered no defense except justifying his actions.
And what did he say to justify his actions?
That he's right in doing what he's doing.
Okay. I also understand. I also understand that that he's refused, and I'm using inverted commas, he's refused to be dismissed. That means, you've dismissed me. One thing is taking it to CCMA, but the other is like, I will not be moved. I'm here. Is that correct? That he's refused
Yes,
to be
he's still
dismissed?
in his position. He still acts as an imam without
Okay.
pay, though. Still
All
lives
right.
in the facilities in the accommodation provided by the trust,
Okay. All
and
right.
he's been paid every month for the last 18 years and 8 months. He's been paid by the trust, and I think we've kept our end of the bargain.
Okay. So when was he stopped getting paid then? When did that stop?
Well, his last day was the 20th of February,
Okay.
2023. Yeah,
So it's just happened now. It's over a month, and then falling into
yeah,
Ramadan,
yeah.
right? Let's talk about the community now, right? And and I have to say, in fairness, when people say the community were out in support, I'm always interested in numbers. Is 10 people a community? Is 1,000 people a community? Is it 10,000 people, right? But there were certainly people, and perhaps you can share, how many people came out in support of him publicly, because they did so over the weekend.
Yes, I'm sure they were. There were lots of people. Right? But I mean, the fact of the matter is, there's only one side of the story that they've heard, and that's his side of the story. And I don't think we want to publicize his actions, the proceeds, the details of why he was fired. And maybe we should. But
Well, I'm going to suggest that maybe, so are the details of why he's fired, if it's left to what you've just told me, then in fact you've already publicized it. I'm just making the point, okay? If there's more than that, and you feel that of all the people in the world that you need to take into your confidence, then I would suggest it to be the community of Kenwan, that then maybe it does require taking them into confidence and having that conversation with them and explaining exactly
yeah,
your
well,
conundrum.
Ashraf, I don't mean the information is there, but I don't
Yeah.
think I want to discuss that information. In other words, let's ventilate it in a public space. I don't think it's right. I mean, we've made our decision. We've dismissed him. And these were the reasons that we supplied, and he is more than welcome to go wherever he wants
Okay.
to seek his justice.
All right.
So
The fact that, as you said, there were many people who protested. Ultimately, I'm looking at government. Ultimately, Ramaphosa and all the others, they serve at the behest of the people. It's always about the people. So if the people want changes in government, then the people will get changes in government. So I think, right, if the people, not myself sitting in Johannesburg, but if the people of the Kenwan community come out in big numbers and say, we want this imam, how then do you as a trust respond, even if he was wrong before, over these issues of management and interference, that they really look up to him and see him as the literal imam, the leader of the community?
well, that's up to them. But in any employment relationship, there's an employer and there's a relationship. If the employment relationship has problems, uh, you don't go to the community to solve the problem. You solve it internally. You sort it out between the parties. If it breaks down, then they must part ways, because it's not a God-given right that you're going to be the imam for the rest of your life, right? So it's something that if you believe that you've been badly treated, go and get it, and force the people that need to change their attitude towards you. Do whatever you need to do.
Okay.
You
The
know,
the
I
fact,
don't think
however,
in
yeah.
South Africa we have met lots of political issues. I think most people are not happy with the government. Does it mean if everybody goes out in the street we're going to get a new government? It doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, things work by systems and arrangement, and there's mechanisms to do it, and there's ways about doing that. And I think that's what we need to concentrate
Okay.
on.
So
If
just
something
2 points.
went wrong, let's fix
So
it.
so 3 points before I let you go. One is the fact that the community of Kenwan came out in their numbers. Will that
Without the
not?
facts, by the way, without the
Yeah,
details.
I hear that, right?
Right.
I mean,
So
they
so
obviously
let's put that in place.
fair
Because
enough,
if
right?
you were told that this was a total injustice, like Mr. Abada told you yesterday,
Yeah,
this was a
yeah,
total
yeah.
injustice, right? The least you could do was find out why, and then make an informed decision.
Well,
But to do
hopefully they'll
that,
know a lot. They'll hopefully know a lot more after today, and then maybe, inshallah, we'll chat to the imam again. I mean, that's our invitation to the imam himself. And if he says yes to that, then we'll talk to Moulana Farouk Rylands tomorrow, inshallah. But here's the thing: the fact that the community came out in their numbers, and as you said, maybe misguided because they don't know the facts, and that's your views, not mine, right? Will that sway the trust to say, we have a problem with the imam, but look at the community here? How do we respond to the community here, when so many of them want this imam? I'm just looking at the practicalities of the area that you live in.
I think there's mechanisms to do anything. Everything is up. You can talk about anything. We can talk about these things. But I mean, for you to say, what are we going to do now? That's up to the community. But surely there's a process in anything, and there's a way about doing it. But this particular matter has gone. It's like it's a social media spectacle now, because and the relationship has gone so bad that it's irretrievably, I think, damaged.
Okay, so here's another thing, right? You're saying there are processes. So perhaps the biggest process here is this: are you the trust, right? Are you open to a renegotiation of the status of the imam, even if he was wrong before? To say, we see the bigger picture, let's bury the hatchet. And I'm not going to the details, but the principle of, are you open to a renegotiation, whether you want to call it arbitration, whether you want to call it mediation driven, whichever way it is, are you open to that, or is that door closed?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think the door's closed. We had opportunities. We put proposals up, and but in this particular case, the imam has put his own proposals as an employee, and he wants his employers changed. The bottom line. So I don't think there's a relationship can work really.
So is that his proposal? Let's get that clear. When you say
suitable.
So let's get that clear. When he says the imam wants his employers changed, you're talking of he wants the trust changed.
Correct.
Okay. The counter argument to that.
By the way, just as a addition to what we're saying is that the trust is open to get 50% of the community appointed, nominated, and then appointed by the trust, right? So talk about openness. Yes, we are. But that process has been stalled from the time that the one person that was nominated was turned down by the trust. We accepted one, and the other one was done. So if that process is still open, so the community has the ability to come and make changes by getting onto the trust and co-governing things like the imam.
Okay. So how many members make up the trust?
4 at the moment.
All right,
and another 2. Yeah.
So you're looking at 2, but you're saying whether then it'll be 6, 50% or 3 of the 6 will reside in Kenwyn. Is that correct?
Well, there'll be more. There'll be 60% residing. At the moment, 50% resides in Kenwyn.
Okay. The argument, and one of the points brought up by Hassan Tabata yesterday is that according to his understanding, none of the trustees reside in Kenwyn.
Well, that just shows you how social media works. I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth. I've jointly, the 2 of us have been in the area for 38 years. So I don't know where this information comes that the trustees are not from the area.
Okay, but perhaps the last thing here. There's also been the argument, not just about the imam, right? But that's Moulana Farouk Rylands, but there needs a broader change that the trustees, and again, I don't know this, I'm only asking, that the trustees historically have been there too long, and there's been a level of disconnection with the community. You've already made the point about the Manco, so maybe you've sort of agreed on that already. I mean, has that been true, that for a long time there's been a disconnection between the trustees and the community of Kenwyn?
Yes, I'll agree to that, because that's the reason why we opened it up and said, look, guys, we need to engage this community, and that was our intention, and to make sure that we didn't continue like we did in the past.
So why was that level of disengagement? You see, because that's the thing that gets people riled up and takes out posters, not just for the imam, but it's like, it's our community, it's our mosque, and it doesn't matter who the trustees are. One can safely say it's our mosque, keeping in mind, the principle that once a mosque is established, it's a waqf, it belongs to the entire community anyway, and the trustees are there to serve, as opposed to the other way around.
Well, that's true, but as you said, that they are there the community would have to get involved. And the mechanism to do that, we've laid it out. We've negotiated this whole agreement that we establish a manco, they run the day-to-day operations, and over time, sooner or later, the community will be fully, the residents will be the trustees, right? But there has to be a disconnection. You can't have the community having carte blanche on everything. It has to be an accounting.
So if down the line,
trustees accountable to the manco is accountable to the community. So they has to have that relationship. You don't have an ultimate one size fits all.
Okay, so if down the line, new trustees get elected, right? A manco gets established to run the day-to-day running of the mosque or the masjid or the trust, right? The current imam, he goes out because he loses any CCMA case, and as you're very confident about, and he moves away. But then 1 year down the line, new trust, new manco, maybe Jake's Rawat is there, maybe he's not there, maybe the others are there, and that trust, right, decides, like a cabinet reshuffle, as often happens. So it's like, actually, we want that imam back. Then what?
I don't know. If that's not for me to decide. Because remember, I'm not there. Like you said, maybe I'm not there. I mean, this is not a lifetime job. It's an amanat. This is a responsibility I have. And while I'm there in the trust, I'm going to do my best to make sure that the people that establish the trust, that those values that they put on their trust deed is adhered to. And I think that's what you need to understand. If there's unhappiness in the community, you address them, but
Right.
you don't go about doing it in a haphazard fashion and then breaking down what we have,
So Jakes, maybe the last thing before I let you go. I mean, clearly, yes, these I mean, this is not the first mosque that's had a problem with an imam, or the first imam that's had a problem with the mosque. I mean, these things happen, and we can't be naive if we think it doesn't happen. But when it spills over like it has, it's not nice. It's nasty. It doesn't look good. It doesn't just not look good. It is not good, right?
What's that? I will put you a challenge that you look at our trust deed. You look at our Annex 1, which sets out getting community involvement. You get and look at how it was set up, and that we had elections in the community. You show me which masjid area had an election like ours, and how we set it up, and the mechanisms. None of that took fruit simply because of one issue or two issues, and then we had problems. The manco decided to resign en masse, and they quit, right? But at the end of the day, the trust still sits with the problem. So it takes level-headed people to say, look, guys, we are committed to this process. Community or trust or whoever, we all live here. This is our masjid. We need to make it work. And that's the attitude. But here, the attitude in this particular demonstration was simply this, to vent and show how angry they are that at one disappointment about the fact that the imam has been dismissed, has brought the whole thing down.
Okay, so in conclusion, I made the point. I'm in conclusion, without saying who's right and wrong, I'm saying
I don't expect you. I just want to make sure that,
and I'm not going to, right? But what I'm saying to you,
that we've done exhaustive work.
So here's my final thought, without going into the who's right and who's wrong. As a South African who's very proud about building the type of champions that we need in our country, but also as a Muslim, right? These things leave a sour taste. And here's the last point, okay? How do you want to resolve this going forward? Just as a last thing. I mean, you want to be in a situation that if you and I talk in a year's time, inshallah, we say, Alhamdulillah, you know what? The things have settled down at Waterloo Road. Alhamdulillah, the mosque is thriving. The community understands things. There's the imam or a new imam. I don't know which one, but actually we have moved on in a way that has been remarkable. That's what I'd love to hear you say in a year's time. Not today, in a year's time. How would you like to move into the next step here?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to happen is that the narrative, that there's only one narrative at the moment, and that's the imam's version, right? And that version is what the community has at the moment. Unfortunately, we have to broaden that, and that the community needs to say, look, there's more to this, right? Can we sit down in without being emotional and say, what is the status and how are we going to move forward? Without the community, we're going to have demonstrations every week like we've had. But naturally, it doesn't, there's no set way. There is a mechanism in place that the community has agreed on. And that is all that we have to work with.
Well, I mean, here's the point.
Willingness to work with that, we've got nothing. We're going to be in the same place in a year's time.
But Jakes, here's the point in conclusion then, at the end of the day, everybody believes they're right. And I understand that, whoever they are, right? If you're saying, they based it on one side of the story. And as you know, if the Musallis do not attend the mosque, and I'm not saying they don't, and I'm not suggesting, I'm not advocating for anything, I'm merely putting a question. If the Musallis do not attend that mosque, then the heart and soul of the mosque doesn't exist. So you would know it and I would know it. It's common sense. You have to get them onto your side somehow. So let me put it this way as a last point. I mean, ultimately, Jakes, you must understand this. Based upon what you said a minute ago, the ball at the moment is not in the Imam's court. The ball is very much in your court as the trust.
Yes, definitely. I don't disagree. But we're prepared to sit down and unemotionally put down the facts on the table, right? At the moment, there's only the Imam's version, right? And this is the first occasion that we're getting to put our side of the story, right? But so much of mistrust and so much of misinformation has gone out that it's hard to believe that there's anyone else, there's a right and a wrong here. It's just one-sided.
Well, then I'm glad that we heard your story, because we've heard one story yesterday. This is day 2 of a story. We will certainly, and we have invited the Imam himself, Moulana Farouk Rylands, to hear his side of the story. And we'll rest assured, we'll let you know whether he's agreed to that or not. Jakes, appreciate your time. I'm glad we had this conversation.
Super.
Thank you. And I pray, inshallah, issues in that community gets resolved sooner rather than later. But yeah, the point at the moment, the ball very much in the trustees' court. That's the Ashrafia Trust. Let's see what they do next. We'll chat to Kari Aish Ali in a moment.